This is the additional maths paper 2014 and we're looking at question 3. In this question, it requires you to have a bit of knowledge about some key formulas. So in GCSE, you would have learned the circumference formula. So remember, the circumference of a circle is pi times its diameter. And I always try and let you remember this one. I'm going to move that slightly over because I know to myself that I have written stuff on there later on. I'll write them on this side. And mind my lovely writing there is pi times diameter. So knowing this, we can actually find the arc length. So you should have seen arc length being mentioned in your GCSE lessons. When you go on to A2, AS even, maybe A2, I can't remember which one it is, you'll start doing arc length with radians. But at this moment in time, you shouldn't know it in radians, so hence why I'm going to teach you the GCSE method. So arc length is usually the angle over 360 times by pi diameter. A few questions at this point go in, but we haven't got the angle. How are we meant to find the arc length? Well, we can use the previous question to help us because you'll notice they are similar shapes. And that's with the similar shapes, they'll have the same angle. So let's try on the first one. We've got 3.5, so we know that's the radius for the smaller arc. Lovely drawn by myself. So essentially what I'd be doing is angle over 360 times by the diameter. So that's 3.5 times 2, which is 7 pi. And that's going to give me 2.1. I'm just going to rearrange this to give me what pi angle over 360 is. So theta over 360. So theta over 360 would equal to 2.1 over 7 pi. You could work this out. You don't need to work it out. So I'm just going to leave it like that for the first one. So I'm just going to give it a little bit explained. So this by here is the proportion of the angle over 360. So just saying that's that part of it. And I'm going to be using the arc length formula up here. So once we've got that part, we can then help find basically this long line by here. So this time we need to find the radius of AD. Now I'm very conscious here because I haven't got much space to write in. I'm probably not given a really clear OCW or intend to hear the communication marks, but you can still see that I'm writing down what I'm doing as I'm going. I'm sure you can write this neater for yourselves. So the radius of AD would be 3.5 plus 2.4, which gives us 5.9. So the diameter is going to be 5.9 times 2, which gives us 11.8. Now we can use that because remember it's pi times diameter times that angle over 360. We haven't got the angle over 360, but what we have got, oh, that's so badly written, is the fact that we've got 2.1 over 7 pi. I hope you can read this because it's a little bit messy. And that's going to give us that arc length. So I'm going to cancel down straight away because I can. That's going to leave me with 11.8 times 2.1 divided by 7 is 0.3. And our pi's are going to cancel out. So that way we can work that out. So The only thing I'm actually typing into a calculator at this moment. Quite impressive. That gives us 3.54. This is a length. Remember, we have to get those communication marks. So it's going to be centimeters. So now I have that, I'm just going to write it up here. And so you can see my final mark. I'm going to change my color. Let's go blue. So the perimeter. We always remember to read your question, okay? Because you don't want to miss that last line. It is an 8-mark question. It's a lot going on. So we've got B, C, D, E. Right, so EB is 2.1. ED and BC are both 2.4. That's going to be a plus. And then the last bit is our 3.54. Add them all together. So we got 2.4 plus 2.4 is 4.8. 6.9 plus our 3.54 is 1044. And again, it's a perimeter, so make sure you got the answer at the end there. I'm going to move myself over to this side. And I've written all over the answers, which I was trying my best to do, but it's fine, we can still look at them. So for the first thing, you actually got a mark of notifying what the circumference would be for the small circle. You got your second mark then of notifying the fact that it's going to give you 7 pi. So the workings and the 7 pi actually gave you 2 marks there. Then if you had the fraction of the circle, which is what we did, so we did the proportion, so angle over 360 was the same. We've got the fact that that one is written down as 22.1 over 7 pi. So really, I could have written that bit better. So my feedback would be that, yeah, I've written proportion of the angle, but it might have been better for me to write proportion of the circle, actually, because that's what I've done. So that tidies that section up. Of the circle. There we go. Then arc of the larger circle, so that's what I've done up here. So radius of AD, I found out. You didn't get any marks for the radius of AD, but you did get a mark for using it as the circumference part, so the bit that we embedded in this section. And then times it by that gave us our A1 mark, which we have written over the answer for the first bit. I can see it down by here though. We got the 3.54, which gives us 10.44 centimeters. So just to give you a bit of idea on the actual laying out your work, as stated before, I've run out of space, but it's good for you guys to notice that basically the work needs to be presented clearly with words explaining the process of steps. This doesn't mean it needs an essay. All it means is that the fact that you need something that's going to be nice and clear to show the examiner what you're doing. So if you're finding the radius, the diameter, arc length, you're explaining what you're doing. So maybe I could have written smaller arc length, larger arc length to make it a little bit clearer. So a few mistakes in mathematical forms, so spelling, punctuality, so any spellings that might have been wrong, that's absolutely fine, as long as you just clear them up a little bit. So that's mainly just checking out those points. And basically, if you are writing sentences, this is why I'm trying to avoid it, is just being careful of any punctuation and grammar in your final answer. So this is where I tend to keep your answers quite short because you're less likely to make a mistake. Hope that helped. Okay, so this is question 3 over and out and done. Well done.